Hello to everyone. We will talk about the Pope Francis document, Amoris Laetitia, the joy of love. When the apostolic letter Amoris Laetitia was published, it had an incredible media coverage, both within the Catholic Church and in the secular society. Unfortunately, the discussion about Amoris Laetitia has focused on chapter 8. This created a huge controversy around the issue of the Eucharist and whether or not it should be received by remarried divorcees. The most progressive groups in the Church concluded that the Pope had made a significant change in moral theology, while more conservative groups considered that the Pope was being unfaithful to the tradition and to the indissolubility of marriage. I think those two visions are simplistic and not quite loyal to Francis' thought. And I also think it's slightly dangerous to only base our opinion of the letter on chapter 8. Usually, these discussions occur when important changes of perspectives are proposed. It happened with Vatican II. It happened with some encyclicals published by Leo XIII and Paul VI. It's common it happened with Vatican II. It happened with some encyclicals. It is common in the Church that some people try to arrange or accommodate Pope's teachings to their own point of view. Divisions about perspectives within the Church have existed since the first century of Christianity. Enough to mention the differences between Peter and Paul. These types of differences or discussions are not necessarily a bad thing or a bad sign. It can be a sign that we are a lively church. It can be a sign of a church in which people think and have different views. Actually, I am happy that we continue talking about Amoris Laetitia because it generates debate, discussion, and work from us Catholics. It can also provide opportunities to retrieve certain truths that have become dormant. At the same time, I consider it is necessary to have a wider vision about Amoris Laetitia and to understand all its content. I will give you my own interpretation of Amoris Laetitia. I don't think that the Pope has touched or changed the essence of our doctrine, but he has changed the approach to the pastoral mission. I would like to give you some topics that I consider fundamental or key to understanding Amoris Laetitia. Let's talk about the title. The title Amoris Laetitia. Why did the Pope use the words love and joy? Love, amoris. The joy of love experienced by families is also the joy of the Church. We believe that all human beings have been created in the image of God, and this means to be created to love and to be loved. The problem is that there is a pessimistic view that a definitive and everlasting love doesn't exist anymore. Most of the millennials have seen that the love of their parents has not lasted, and often it would be difficult to see a better future in their own lives. Talking about love is a big challenge, and there is no way to convince people about love just through ideas. I think that the title Joy of Love expresses the real concern of the Pope. How can we awake again the possibility for the world that love is real? How can we believe in love if we see so much selfishness, nastiness, and violence? His answer is in the title, with the joy of love. Here we are not talking about a feeling, we are not talking about a romantic vision. This is not a discussion of personal development. We are talking about a love that can heal any damage. A love that can save the most lost human being. There is a love bigger than mine, than yours, that can rescue us from selfishness and maliciousness. This love has a concrete countenance and is Jesus Christ. In a relativistic world in which no one believes in the truth, the Pope wants to find new ways to attract people to the gospel. In our times, it is not just by words or ideas alone, but principally through the beauty of love. I think that we have forgotten to evangelize with the beauty of love and joy. For me, the crisis of the family is because we are not able to participate in Jesus' loves in our relationships. When we love with God's love, it's like that we can see in the other what he's meant to be. With God's love, we have the power to imagine the other as sharing the God's image. So in that way, the other can experience God's love and is able to feel loved. When we are superficial, when we just see the boring, shy, neurotic person that someone is, this is not creative. He doesn't feel love because we are just looking in a superficial way. We are not open to love's creativity. But if we see in the other Christ's image, what he's meant to be, when we love them because their dignity as human beings, they feel love. Because we are able to see the capacity that they have for love. And this happens in our own families. All we see sometimes is how complicated our sister or brother is, how our father or mother, our cousins or nephews or whatever. We only remember how they failed us, and it may seem incredibly difficult to try to overcome all these situations and to create something new. But we are called to create something new because we are called to participate in Jesus' new creation, to do all things new. The second word of Amoris Laetitia is joy. The word joy in Latin has two meanings, has two words, Laetitia and Gaudium. Gaudium is the plenitude of love. Gaudium is the Gaudium of God. Laetitia is just a human joy. The love of the family is not Gaudium, that's the plenitude. The joy of the family is Laetitia. It's Laetitia because we as families, we are just a sign of God. We are not perfect. We are not the plenitude of joy. But the family is a sign. We have to be this sign. We must be this sign. We must be this prophecy of the fulfillment of God. So if we live the joy, the happiness of family, we can be this sign of God for the others. The problem is that we have not this joy anymore. Sometimes we are sad Catholics when we have to be happy Catholics full of joy, enthusiasm that comes from theo. Enthusiasm means be full of the presence and the joy of God. That means enthusiasm, and we have to recover this enthusiasm. Because just with this joy is that we can be sign for the others, for the world. If we want to make God present in the world, we need to live the joy of the family. And when I say family, I am referring to the family that does not just include our nuclear relatives. I am referring to whole humanity. We have to feel that all humanity is our family. A theologian once said that the world is an orphan that needs fathers and mothers. I think that our first response to Amoris Laetitia is to become parents, mothers, fathers, sisters, brothers of humanity, always taking care of those in need of love. Let's try to see the context of Amoris Laetitia. First, it's important to understand Amoris Laetitia's literary genre. It is the fruit of two synods, the Synod of 2014, the Synod of 2015. The Pope didn't want to present a new dogma or give solutions to all the problems. He wanted to initiate the reflection of different issues regarding family. That is why he affirms in number 3 the complexity of the issues that arose revealed the need for continued opening discussion of number of doctrinal, moral, spiritual, and pastoral questions. We have to remember what the Pope said in the Synod of 2015. Synodality is the path of the Church. But what is synodality? Synodality means walking all together, pastors, lay, and the bishops of Rome. With this letter, the Pope is enacting the principle of synodality, inviting pastors to be co-responsible, but at the same time, inviting us, lay people, to think and discuss. So Pope Francis wants to strengthen a more decentralized administration. He's on the same page as John Paul II when in his encyclical Ut Unum Sint affirmed, begin a new study of the question of a universal ministry of Christian unity in the hope to find a new situation of exercising the primacy. So Benedict XVI, in the same way as John Paul II and Pope Francis, tried to search for a more decentralized way of governing. The primacy, said Benedict XVI, cannot be patterned on the model of an absolute monarchy, as if the Pope were the unrestricted monarch of a centrally constituted supernatural state called Church. Rather, its proper place resides in the official center of the collegiality of bishops. So, what he wants is not to dictate norms as a monarch, but to include all of us in the discussion about family. That's what he wanted with Amoris Laetitia. Also, we have to understand what type of document we are in front of. Amoris Laetitia is a pastoral document. It is not a philosophical document, neither is a dogmatic text. I think it is a reflection of pastoral theology. It is a sapiential reflection, full of wisdom, and as a pastoral reflection has its source in the people's experience of faith, who are trying to live human love. To understand Francis' style, we must understand his pastoral theological method. This is Latin American theology. What are the characteristics of Latin American pastoral method? The starting point of Latin American theology is experience. We must remember that experience is one of the fundamental sources of theology. Remember, we have different sources for theology: revelation, tradition, reason. But experience is another source in which is like a locus, a place in which we use to do theology. So it is not the only source, but it is a valid way, and especially for pastoral theology, is necessary to understand the experience of the faith of the people. Latin American theology tries to understand the experience of the people of God to better understand from their experience the truths of the faith and the moral life. We need to remember that for Latin American theology, the first step is discipleship, and then comes theology as a second step, as a critical dimension in which we reflect about our reality, about our experience. After living the experience with the people of God, Pope Francis tried to reflect in a theoretical way and then goes back to the pastoral praxis with a new vision. It is the famous method that bishops have used in all the meetings of the Episcopal conferences in Latin America: see, judge, and act. So if we don't try to understand Latin American theology, we may miss the point of the apostolic letter. With this, we have finished the introduction of this conference about Amoris Laetitia. We will continue in the second presentation. Thank you very much.